Hello, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I hope you all had a fantastic weekend and misbehaved just a little bit. Just a little bit. I did. Happy Monday, everybody. Hello, Brice. How are you?
I am so good. I cannot wait for this show. This show is right up all as we say in the South, all y'all watching right now, not just y'all, but all y'all watching. You're gonna love this show because this is some juicy conspiracy stuff. So I cannot wait.
Nice. Well, someone here, Mitzi, is saying, listen to Bryce's earlier show on her channel, and this is so interesting. Can't wait. What was on your earlier channel?
I reviewed what we're going to be talking about, and I said, come over to Rising Africa so we can go into it even more, because we know Shanti has spent literally 4 years now really focused on calling out these secret societies. And so if anybody's going to have even more information, it's probably going to be Shanti versus what I could find on this particular
and especially since our flippant politicians, the Nelson Mandelas of the world, we all know who Nelson Mandela is. We all know, well, I don't know if you guys know who Oliver Tambo is. Oliver Tambo was the founder of the African National Congress, right? Or the ANC, which of course was supposedly South Africa's freedom party. It's of course when the Nats, the nationalists, the apartheid government got pretty much booted out, the African National Congress came in, the biggest African political party. And they are all members of the
Knights of Malta. Knights of
Malta. Nice. Or they call it the St. John something.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. There's many names.
Yeah. And so is, by the way, so is Desmond Tutu. Now, if anyone knows, you guys must probably know Desmond Tutu as well. He was the Archbishop, the Anglican Archbishop here in South Africa, who also recently passed away. And guess what? Secret society he was a member of?
Knights of Malta.
And he, in order to get his archbishopship, he sold his grandchild into child trafficking. Yep. And that's a horrible story all on its own, because his daughter apparently was trying to get him back, whose obviously son it was. She was who's mother of the child that he'd trafficked for his crown. And she tried to get him back, and to no avail. And then she had people helping her. And the next minute, all the people that were helping her were thrown into a lunatic asylum.
Yep.
And she went completely quiet, and no, not another word was spoken about that. And she apparently went completely quiet. So, yeah, we know that. And who else? I mean, it would be no doubt.
We're going to get at the 3-letter agency, plural agents, not just the American one, but the UK one. I mean, we're going to get into this really this fabulous group of people. They're just so amazing. They're just so, just kidding. That's me being sarcastic. They're horrific. And I have to say, I would have never really looked into the Knights of Malta if it wasn't for Paul, Catherine the Great's son. So we're going to talk about him a little bit at the end, because he was obsessed with the Knights of Malta, and he became the Grand Master of the Knights of Malta. So during his short little reign that he reigned after Catherine's death. But I am just, the more I research these groups, the more horrified I become at our own history and what we've been just completely duped by in this world. And, this is not just some fun fraternity of men, like they try to sell us that the Freemasons are just like a community organization of men. No, it's not that. The Knights of Malta are not that either. And I do, St. John, we're going to talk a lot about St. John. And I just want to put this out here before we get into the Knights of Malta, guys. Just understand that the J and the alphabet J did not exist when Yeshua or Jesus or John these characters from the Bible that we've been taught to venerate, the J sound did not exist then. It didn't, there was no J. In the English, there was no, so that's a huge red flag. And people will say, well, you look at like Yeshua, his real name, to replace the Y with a J, what does that turn into? That turns into Joshua.
Yeah.
Not Jesus. So we're going to talk about John and the veneration of St. John, because this gets into the Knights of Malta. And I just want to tell you guys that both the Knights of Malta and the Freemasons revere John the Baptist and John the Evangelist. So for those who don't know the difference between the two, from what we, you would be Jessica, just you would be Jessica. We should just call you.
That's exactly what I'm writing there, Jessica.
Jessica. So
Judy Patootie.
I know, but like who? So if we know that, so who were these John guys then? Like if John didn't exist, like Jan, was that their name? I don't know. But John the Baptist, we know, was allegedly Jesus's cousin who got his head chopped off, right? And then John the Evangelist was the dude that wrote Revelations. Now, we also know, if we've been on this channel for a while, that we've never actually, us peasants of the world, have never actually seen the real Bible. The real Bible is under the Vatican. That is fact. The Bible that we have now was written by the Freemasons. Again, that's not opinion. That is fact. You can look all that up. We have a, what is it? Is it Caleb that calls it the slave handbook or something? Like it's not.
Slave Bible.
The slave Bible.
Yeah.
It's not real. It was written by the Freemasons. Now, the Knights of Malta and the Freemasons do have an interesting kind of the Knights Templar where they've butted heads sometimes, which again, I want to reiterate that just because two factions are fighting each other does not mean that one is good and one is bad. There is no honor amongst thieves. They will fight each other. Even if they're both serving the negative polarity, they will absolutely fight each other to take each other. They will.
And this is, I mean, again, when you speak to Caleb, and you all know on this channel, Caleb was in the arcane for many years. And he makes no secret about the fact that the majority of people he could not stand in there. They don't like each other. There's forever infighting happening. There's obviously a lot of power grabbing and a lot of power struggling. It's not like when you truly of the light. And I'm not talking about the light side and the dark side. There's a difference when you're looking at the light side of the system and the dark side of the system. Those of you who listened to Caleb's show last night with me on the Orbital book of the, what's that? The, whatever, Orbital book of the ancient book of the magic, whatever it is. It's fascinating stuff. And there, you know, he will, you go through, when you read the aphorisms, okay, and exactly what they mean and how they use them in the light side as well as the dark side. It is absolutely fascinating. So when you are of the light, not on the light side, but of the light, there's a big difference. Remember that they're going to use all these things that are very sneaky and slippery. And when you are of the light, there is no power struggle. And it doesn't mean, yes, as human beings, for sure, we have our itchiness, we have our glitches here and there, you know what I'm saying? But in essence, when we are of the light, we do not power struggle with each other. We might have our issues here and there and what have you, and we might disagree, and we might have a shouting match with each other every now and then, you know, normal stuff. But in the true essence of the word, there is no power struggle. But however, when you're working in the arcane and when you're working with the dark arts, there's always a grabby power struggle. So there in itself, we just got to, these are the little things we've got to just be aware of. When
they will eat each other. And the law of one and the Cassiopeans do speak about this. Like they will they'll use each other and they'll pretend to be friends with each other, but then they'll throw each other under the bus. Service to self. It is absolutely service to self. So I want to, again, this is just to reiterate, just because two factions are fighting each other does not mean, because we're building up to the Volkovich Revolution and the Romanovs, it does not mean just because the Volkovich were bad, does not mean the Romanovs were good.
Right.
They're both compromised, and they're fighting each other for power. Okay. So I just wanted to reiterate that, because the Knights of Malta do kind of fight with the Knights Templar and the Freemasons, doesn't mean that they're just in a power struggle. They're all secret societies that are not up to no good. So they have multiple names: the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, the Sovereign Military Hospitaller Order of Saint John of Jerusalem, of Rhodes and Malta, and the Order of Malta. To this day, this is what's freaky deaky to me. To this day, they are still considered a sovereign entity under international law. So that is why they have a seat at I don't know if we can say the name of the organization, Shanti, but it starts with a U. The first word starts with a U, and the second word starts with an N.
United Nations.
Yeah, and I think I sent you a picture of that shows a picture. They have a seat there, you guys. So these isn't a group of people that don't have a country. They're not.
Well, I show. Here we go.
So Sovereign Order of Malta. There we go. They don't have a freaking country. It's not like the United States or Canada or South Africa or Italy has a seat at the table for this group that's supposed to be a good group, but we know they're not. So why does Malta have, I mean, we know Malta's an island, but we'll get to why it got called Malta, but they're not a country. So why do they have,
exactly.
That's weird. Guys, like, to the normie, that might be a little hint to the normies in your life. That's strange.
Do you know why they do that, or are you asking? Is that a rhetoric question?
No, I know why. I know they're actually in control of these organizations. They're actually the ones puppeting everything, which we're going to get.
Yes,
into.
but yeah, it's because they have. There's a lot to do with a Nephilim over there. I think it must be to do with portals, ley lines, that sort of thing. But it's a very powerful spot that they're on, and we're looking. I think energetically, yeah, and they have giants. There's very lot of giants and things there. So with the Nephilim and stuff, yep, that's very much a hot spot.
Yeah, so I think that would be a good, again, for people in your life that think these are just fun little fraternities that just are community service organizations. That might be a good entry point. Be like, well, then why do they have a seat at the UN? If they're
exactly, Misty May, you're very much on the right track here. By the way, maybe their land is underground. There's a lot of stuff that happens underground. It's like dodgy as what they come there. Anyway, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Carry on.
I did that. So that for us, even though we're going to talk about the history of the Knights of Malta and Paul and all that kind of stuff, this is why we dive into history. Not only is it, again, a gossip fest. It's my favorite part of it is the shit talk that we get to do about these.
Love to gossip.
We could be petty bitches and like gossip, and we could judge people. Like there was a reality show I loved where when the girls want to be like, my best quality, I judge people. That's that's my talent, is I judge people. Like, we can sit here and like be petty and gossip about the past. That's all history is like. That's all history is.
It's lovely to be petty and gossip.
That is all history is. It's just a class of gossip, y'all. That's why history is the best class you can ever take. It is a literal academic gossip class. That's all we're doing. So we're going to gossip about the Knights of Malta. But we're gossiping and judging them. We're going to harshly judge them because they deserve to be judged. Okay?
My dad's love word are gossip.
I mean, this is listen, women are the best. Yes, Jessica, I was about to say, we're women. Gossip is in our DNA. This is our superpower as women and gay men. This is our superpower, is that we will remember everything. I remember fights that I had with my boyfriend 5.5 years ago, the hour, the date, the time. I will recall that in a heartbeat if I need to. Like, that is
exactly, and you'll throw it back in his face because that's when you said this.
Yes, because
and never forgotten.
And this is God gave us this ability for a reason, you guys. Like, and this is where we get to shine. Like, we're like, we don't forget anything. So this is where, we're the cabal's greatest fear, because we're petty bitches who don't forget, and we gossip. So we are the cabal's greatest fear, because I will remember the fact that Catherine the Great had a coffee table made of dildos, and that's weird. and her son.
I still have a picture. I took some of the others down. We've used. I've kept those pictures of this coffee table with dildos and willies.
I mean, we're going to be petty and we're going to judge her because that's what we do best. We're going to be petty bitches and judge her for the horrific coffee table. Did you hear Catherine has a coffee table made, not Catherine the Great, not our friend Catherine, not Catherine. Catherine the Great has a coffee table made of dildos. And her son, Paul. I
showed it to someone of our other shows the other day. I said, oh my gosh, I was looking at pictures. I said, oh my God, did you see Catherine's coffee table?
This is our superpower, y'all. We're nosy. We will find this stuff. We'll gossip about it on the internet for the world to see. We will judge you for it. We are the
yes.
here. So we're going to judge. We're going to hardcore judge these freaks who were in the Knights of Malta too, because I'm sorry, you look like a dweeb. If you start dating a guy who is obsessed with the Knights of Malta, that reminds me of guys who want to like cosplay. I'm like, that's weird. Let's talk about the Knights because that's weird. That's strange. I don't want to date somebody that wants to be in a secret fraternity. Like, that's fucking weird. You know, how lame does your life have to be? How lame does your life have to be for you to want to join some secret club? You must not have a lot of excitement in your love. And I'm talking to the cabal right now. You're pathetic. You look pathetic. Like, how freaking lame are you? All right, so let's get into it, you guys. So now, as I go through the history of the Knights of Malta, and my nose is itching as I'm saying that, so I know it's true. You're lame. That's God being like, yeah, they're freaking lame and pathetic. You're pathetic. All right, so now, again, I'm going to reiterate. I'm going to give you guys the history as we know it. Now, if you've been with us for a while, you know that I think most of us watching right now are very skeptical of the history that they give us. So this is what we have. So this is what I'm going to go off. But again, I'm taking it all with a grain of salt because I'm definitely, according to the Cassiopeians, everything that we think has happened, but not in the order it's happened. And it's more condensed. They've added like 1,000 years into our timeline, which I think was Tartaria. Anyway, subject for a different day. But just hold on to this, that this might not be the true timeline. This is just what we have. So we've all heard of the Crusades, right? We've all heard of the Crusades. What a horrific idea. Totally not what Joshua meant for us to go off and like slaughter people.
I was going to say, like the Christian Crusades, like the biggest slaughter fest in the name of Christianity.
This is
religion, actually.
Yep. That Christianity has the most blood on its hand out of any religion in the world. Christianity has the most blood on its hands. So judge not lest ye be judged. I'm not going to sit here and judge other religions when the religion that I was born into is actually the most evil. And it starts with the Crusades. So the Crusades are defined as a religious war supported and sometimes directed by the Christian Church, aka the Catholic Church, the Vatican. These were military expeditions into the Holy Land to take control of Jerusalem. They lasted from 1095 to 1291. European zealots slaughtered.
Somebody asked to see the coffee table. Carry on. There's the coffee table, yo. I had to keep it on.
I mean, it's priceless, isn't it? So European zealots slaughtered anyone who did not proclaim the Christian faith. Sounds familiar. It's the Christian church is doing the same thing today. It's the same playbook. Anybody who professes, and it's even gotten more tedious today, which it was kind of like this back then, which we'll get into. Like, I love Yahshua. I love Magdalene. I love the idea of the Christ. But yet Shanti and I have been targeted because we don't follow the order of the cabal, which is the church. The name church comes, if you research into the etymology, church actually comes from a demon's name. Why don't we call it a temple? We call it a church because we're venerating a demon that mind controls you and hypnotizes you. So we're seeing the same playbook, 1,000 years ago, right? A little over 1,000 years ago. All right. So in reality, it was an empire building military expedition that used propaganda and division to get the common man to go to war on the church's behalf. It was a power grab for this particular sector of the cabal. All right. The church promised eternal salvation if you fought for them in this war. The church has been promising external salvation since the beginning, where Yahshua said nothing of external salvation. Yahshua said it's up to you. It's inside of you, right? So now they were going against, now I was always taught when I was a kid that the Crusades were the Christians versus the Muslims. That's not true. How many of you guys thought that, were taught that growing up? It was a war against 3 different groups. So the church, the Christian church, the Vatican, went to war against the Muslims, the Jewish people, and, drumroll please, the Gnostics, the original Christians. They leave that out of the equation, don't they, when they're teaching us this? They wanted to get rid of the original Christians, the people that were actually practicing the faith that Yahshua taught, which is totally different from Jesus, what the church teaches. We've gone through the missing books of the Bible, so they still held on to the missing books of the Bible. They were in the Middle East. And you guys, get this. So before the Crusades happened, there was peace in the Middle East. For at least 300 years, the Muslims in the Middle East, the Jewish people in the Middle East, and the Gnostic Christians in the Middle East all got along. They were very respectful. They saw each other as brothers. There was no problems. They respected each other. And then all of a sudden, before the Crusades happened, what started to happen was these pilgrims, aka these representatives of the Catholic Church, started to come in and tamper with the land. And so they were being escorted out by the people of the Middle East, because the people of the Middle East at this time knew that the Vatican was no good. The Gnostic Christians knew that what the Vatican was teaching was not what Yahshua taught. We had already started about 700 years earlier. They'd already started the massive book banning. I even, so I wrote down the new Christians, the new ones, aka the Vatican, were censoring books, rewriting text, which we know that from the Council of Nicaea. Constantine hired editors to edit the Bible. If it's the word of God, why does it need to be edited? Right? And eroding the original message of Yahshua, and they became violent aggressors. So at this point, the Vatican, the Catholic Church, was known throughout the lands to be violent aggressors. They're still, in my opinion, the Catholic Church, as well as all the Protestant churches, still, in my opinion, are violent aggressors.
Yeah.
Shanti and I have experiences where they're very violent, very, very violent. So the same thing is being taught to hurt people, where the original Christians taught peace, and they were cool with the Muslims and cool with the Jewish people because it was an inner work anyway. Okay. So what was happening is now with these 3 groups, the group that had the best military order was the Muslims. So the Muslims created like a military to try to protect the people of the Middle East, including the Jewish people and the Gnostics, because they all considered each other to be one and the same. They were brothers, they were cousins, they respected each other's faiths, they got along. And so the Muslims created a military order to protect the land. All right. So anytime someone from the church came over to the Middle East to try to do whatever they were going to do, the Muslims would push back and say, you can't come in here. We know who you are. You're not allowed on our premises. And so the Catholic Church never won, the Kabbalists never won to miss a good propaganda opportunity, said, look at these nasty Muslims. Look at them hurting our pilgrims. You got to go to war. You got to kill the Muslims. You got to kill the Jews. You got to kill the Gnostics. We got to take control of Jerusalem. Hence, you have the Crusades. So, the Order of St. John was established in 1048. So, the Crusades started in 1095. Now, I think that this goes way back before 1048, but we're going to start at 1048 because that's the information that we have. And so they were the order of Benedictine, the Benedictine monks, which were also called the Black monks because they wore the black robes. And they venerated John the Baptist and John the Evangelist, the same 2 people that the Freemasons venerate. Interesting, right? We know
really interesting.
We know the Freemasons are Satanists. I know that the church I know that the Christianity we see today is a flavor of Satanism. We know that because of Jesus being Zeus, Satan, the Dionysian cult, the cannibalism, the drinking of the blood. It's not the original teachings of Yahshua. We see if you're worshiping the Prince of Peace, you're not going to be violent. You're not going to stone witches and hang witches and burn witches, people that are different from you. You're not going to go to the mother
in the name of the Bible, always in the name of the Bible,
right?
Yeah.
You're not going to go to Jerusalem and slaughter people. You're not going to do that. If you're actually a Christian, if you're actually following the teachings of Yahshua, you're not going to do that.
Which is all about love and compassion and non-judgment.
And Yahshua never touched anybody. He never hurt anybody. The only time we ever see him get upset and start whipping is when he goes into the temple. And guys, they weren't doing, the slaves' Bible tells us they were doing business, right? The missing books of the Bible tell us they were doing sacrifices. Very different. Yeah. That's why he gets so upset. That's the only time we see him react in anger. Otherwise, he is extremely peaceful. So for all the Christians that get violent, that send Chantelle death threats, that's not what Yahshua taught. That's not how a Christian behaves. So it tells you a little bit of something more about your faith and what you've been brainwashed and programmed to do. You're like almost like a secret soldier for the Illuminati at this point, right?
Right.
So this is very telling, about the Crusades. So in 1048, the Benedictine monks were sent to Jerusalem before the first battle of the Crusades to set up like a hospital, like a hostel for the pilgrims. So people coming into Jerusalem needed protection from the Muslims who set up a military order to protect themselves, the Jewish people, and the real Christians. Again, I'm going to reiterate this, guys. The Muslims were protecting the true Christians. There was no animosity between the true Christians, the Jewish people, and the Muslims. They were a brotherhood trying to protect each other, and they had one common enemy, which was the Vatican. All right, but all these Europeans had been brainwashed, right? We know that the European culture was the first to be conquered by the Illuminati, to take away the pagan, to take away the Druid, to take away everything, to make them, and of course they created the name pagan to describe anything outside of their own faith, the Catholic Church, to get them into this Illuminati-controlled brainwashing religion. And so they sent them out like soldiers to go and slaughter these innocent people in their own homeland, right? So these Europeans were coming into the Middle East where these people lived. This was their home. It was not the Europeans' home. It was their home, to slaughter them in the name of Jesus. And I say Jesus this time because you can't use Yahshua, because Jesus means hail Satan. So it's the name of Satan.
Exactly. And if you look at that, and again, I want to just chime in here, Brice. Again, when you listen to Caleb last night, especially last night, it's the first time he's mentioned that, and he's often alluded to that. And this, the arbitell of magic of the ancients, which is pretty much part of the deception, how they use that. They talk about Jesus, and he said, okay, we'll talk about that in another show, because it's the Jesus they speak about is not Yeshua. Absolutely. It's Jesus, Zeus. And that is also coming from Caleb, guys, who's been in the arcane for how many years? You all know that. And he never stopped speaking about the fact, he says, for him, it was the biggest surprise and shock to know that Christian people did not know this information, because everyone in the arcane knows this. Everyone in the arcane knows this. This is deliberately kept away from modern day Christians, because it keeps, and this is why people get so mad. It's designed to divide and conquer. It's
honestly,
designed.
They're not hiding it. I found this information out just researching. They're not hiding it. They're just
nothing, exactly. And that's why it's so important that we research. We look at these things. You know, when we get accused of X, Y, and Z, it's because people really have not educated themselves. And that's why I keep saying, when anyone starts throwing their Bible verses at me, I know immediately that person has not even begun to integrate the teachings of Christ.
No, absolutely not.
Christ did not have a Bible in the day when he was around. He was the living word. He acted in alignment with God's will for him. Right? And that's what we are required to do as well. And it's very interesting. I'm loving what this information is bringing out, because slowly but surely, I hope to God that all of us on this channel are going to start seeing that more and more and more and more.
So, and I will say, so JB Ranch, you said church comes from Kirk, Lake Captain. That is the fake history, JB Rants. You can actually look all this up. They talk, if you look up, they actually talk about creating that story of Kirk. That's the propaganda, so that you won't dig in any deeper to know that it comes from a demon's name. You have to dig deeper to know that it comes from a demon's name. They actually cover this too in the missing books of the Old Testament as well. So I know where you're getting that from, but that's like the first level where they want you to think it comes from something harmless, but it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. So I would, and my nose is itching too again. That's another sign that we are in the. And Jessica, you said,
I agree with you, Brice. I agree with you. I've also had conversation about that.
Yeah. I think Jessica said, ooh, gross. You guys get death threats. Yeah, Jessica, you said, ooh, people sending y'all death threats. How gross. It is gross. But yeah, we've gotten a ton of them, Jessica. From
yeah, we get quite a few.
We did a whole show on my channel. Threats
that accidents happen.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, miss those nose itches. Yeah. So they don't, I think out of everything that Shanti and I, and maybe I'm generalizing that we talk about, that's the biggest threat, is that we're saying, hey, y'all, like this stuff I found, I have no secret library. I just have patience. I'm petty and I'm patient. I will sit and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig. And I will find this. And sometimes, if you go to literally, you guys, if you go to the Freemasons website, they have a website. So does the Knights of Malta have a website too, y'all. Like you can find stuff and then go fact check it for yourself.
Absolutely.
They're not hiding it. They're just hoping that they think we're dumb. They've got us so distracted with the reality shows and with
exactly.
And with trying to pay the bills that we're not gonna, and we go to our church for help and support. They don't think that we're gonna,
it's just what Misty May says here as well. The church says, don't go looking, ask questions. So rather ask your pastor or your preacher, who's also had propaganda and nonsense blown into his or her ears for God knows how long. And I love what you say, Lisa D, as well. This is why people get so mad, even after finding out the truth. People don't like to be wrong, so they triple down. It's so true. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, what's the Mark Twain quote? It's easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. That's the Mark. It's true. Exactly. Well, the thing is, for me, and I said this on my channel with you, Shanti, it's like God can't be limited and bound to a book. God did not write the Bible. It's not. God is beyond that. A 2-year-old who can't even read, a 2-year-old who can't even wipe their own ass knows who God is. That we're born knowing who God is, and then we're sent to these indoctrination places like school and Sunday school and church, where we're then indoctrinated to question ourselves. And
to follow their narrative, which has been now imprinted in humanity for centuries. It's been imprinted into humanity that we are dumb. We need to follow what they say. And if we dare question anything, then we new age, all of that stuff. So, yeah.
And I will say, you guys, like when I first started going through the missing books of the Bible on my channel, and I made it very clear that we were going to take an academic approach to this. Let's just see what they're censoring. Let's just see what they've hidden from us. And I would get emails all the time from people saying, well, my pastor said, and a lot of smart people said that we shouldn't be reading these books. I'm like, well, a lot of smart people also told you to get the zapper-dee-doo-dah. When the hell are you going to take your power back and realize that these people don't? And I would say, well, where did your pastor go to seminary school? Look and see who owns that seminary school. Follow the money. All these seminary schools are owned by the same people who own the media.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Like, riddle me that, Batman. Riddle me that. And how come all these pastors and preachers wear black robes, just like the Benedictine monks wore black?
Exactly.
What does that come from?
The whole Saturnian thing.
And
what's interesting? Yeah. I'm sorry. Carry on.
No, see, that's the fraternity of the Saturnalian Brotherhood, which is where we get the word Satan from.
Yeah, exactly.
This is fact, guys. It's all out there. It's all. And I know we're preaching to the choir because all you guys know too. But yeah, people would rather. And I think what happens too, I think was it Lisa D said that? I think what happens, Lisa D, is we have this quote unquote truther community who woke up and realized some shady stuff was going on in the world. And they're so used to being right that the minute, and they're clinging to religion, because the cabal is anything but they're not stupid, right? There are many things, but stupid ain't one of them. So of course they infiltrate the truther community. They infiltrate. And they make people believe that we're following biblical prophecy, right? That's what we're doing, following biblical. So people cling to the highest tier of the cabal, which is the Christian church. And then they get mad when you say, listen, you're being duped again. You're being brainwashed again. They get mad because they're used to being right. They're used to being right about these things, right about this thing. And the minute you say, hey, but have you considered that your religion is actually part of the Illuminati too? They get mad because their ego, so the cabal is smart, right? They blew people's egos up in the truther community, that now their ego is too big for them to take a step back and be like, I'm being manipulated on all corners, you know?
Right.
And for me, I don't know. I mean, just, it makes me mad. Lisa D, this is why Brice dropping truth. This is why we get death threats. Because I get
exactly.
mad.
Exactly. And you know, the big question for me is always, to everyone who was taking the zappity doodah day, is like, honestly, could you imagine Yeshua taking the zapper?
No.
I mean, hello. If you want to follow truth, then follow what he did and what he stood for, the real one. And even the one in the Bible, the slave Bible, would never have taken it. So the question, you know, trust yourself, trust your body. Your body is designed to heal itself.
Yeah, God,
you are designed, you are created in the image of God. So just, if you can just integrate that, why on earth would you go and question anything and go against those very simple truths?
So I absolutely have no interest in anything that has to do with the church. I don't want anything to do with it. I think it's all a bunch of propaganda and BS. And I even if the pastor doesn't know he's being puppeted by the cabal at this point, and I hate to sound mean, I'm like, if you don't know that at this point, I question your intelligence. If you haven't figured that out at this point, I question your intelligence, because it's so obvious. And this whole Knights of Malta history and Crusade history just proves the point even more. They're doing the same. And that's the thing. They're smart, but they use the same playbook over and over and over again, because they're narcissists, right? So they don't think they can lose. So they've been using the same playbook all these years. So like, they can't.
So creative.
They're so, guys, I mean, it's just so obvious. And that's the thing about narcissists, though, is they don't see a world where they can be wrong, the fact that we're calling them out on this stuff, they're like frantic, like, well, we'll just run the same playbook. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. So in 1948, these Benedictine monks, wearing their black robes because they're sworn into the Saturnalian fraternity, which is why judges wear black. It's where we wear black robes.
And the black cube, when you go for your I want to say inauguration there. When you graduation, you're wearing your black cube. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Your wedding rings, the rings of Saturn, your earrings, the rings of Saturn. Now, I'm not saying Saturn is bad. God created everything. Saturn is, and its true template, Saturn is like Father Time. It's just like the planet of karma and Father Time, right? So
Saturn, when you look at the true planet, and anyone again who says that the cabal, I mean, I was told this week again by someone who I thought to be in the know, to be perfectly honest, that the Illuminati created astrology. I'm going, you have got to be joking. Anyone who knows anything knows that astrology comes from the heavens.
Yes.
And yes, it was brought down by the fallen angels, okay? So the whole thing with astrology is, and where there's a issue, because yes, has it been corrupted by humanity? Absolutely. Certain people, certain humans are allowed to work with these things. In other words, they are earth angels, if you want to call it that, ordained by God to work with certain heavenly principles. That does not make it evil. Has astrology been corrupted many a day? Absolutely. So you cannot just lump everything in the same pot. You've got to, this is where it's so important for us to discern. Astrology was not created by the cabal.
Nothing was.
Absolutely. Astrology is from the heavenlies, right? Yeah, and so they have corrupted it, yes, in many ways. But I'm gonna repeat this. Certain humans are allowed to work with it. They've been given permission by God and the heavenlies to teach humans. God does not make accidents. No. You know, and let's also just remember this. Do you think God did not know Lucifer was gonna fall from grace and all that. Of course, God knew that. Of course, God knew that, because God understood the shadow aspect of humanity. And these angels and fallen angels are representing humanity's shadow aspect.
Do you know?
So let us, I mean, that's a whole story for another day. Okay. But God never makes mistakes.
The Cassiopeians say that we're Lucifer. We created Lucifer by our defiance.
We do. We did. It's humanity's shadow aspect.
So if you accept, so that's the thing, that's what takes the power away from the Cabal too, because the Cabal has this believing that Lucifer is this entity that's exterior from you. But if you actually realize that you're part of the reason why collectively we created this, then you can take that power back, work on your shadow side, and there's no
exactly fear. It's not the devil at the door, but it's your shadow on the floor.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. And they don't want you to know that, because they want that violence, right? They want you to react in violence, because, and that's the thing too, Shanti, that makes me so, when people say that, because I'm like, first of all, the darkness, if you think the Illuminati created something, then you don't understand basic science, because darkness cannot create anything. It can't do it.
Emulates.
It mimics, it steals, it inverts, and it mimics. It cannot create anything. And so if you think that the Illuminati made astrology or made these planets, then you are giving the Illuminati way too much.
Do you think the Illuminati created yoga as well? Fuck them.
See the book of the Bible where Yahshua teaches.
They don't touch their toes, let alone create the 8 limbs.
listen, y'all. Then you are a fan. If you think they created something, then you're obviously a fan of them, because I know it's laughable. They don't have. That is why, my friends, they have to do sacrifices, blood rituals. It's because they can't create. They need the life force. That's why they have to do that. Like, this is common sense at this point. So if we were to take everything that the Illuminati had inverted and corrupted and threw it away, we would have nothing left. Nothing left. And the God that I believe in, the God that I know is real, is a God of mercy and healing. And so it is up to us to course correct. It is up to us to course correct everything and put everything back in its template, where it's supposed to be, where God created it to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. For me, it sure as heck does.
Yeah. So anyway, I just God, my nose is itching again. You know what? Let me listen. Hey, listen, if you're listening, guy, can you make something?
My eyes are itching. So what does that mean?
Like, that's not like
I'm gonna itch your eyes.
Like, can we make it like so we have a good hair day or something? Like, I gotta be the nose every time that itches. But anyway, so it's when we're looking at like the Knights of Malta, that's what's important to look at these groups, because we fear them, but when we really look at them, they're kind of idiotic. I mean, they're smart, but they're smart idiots. Like, because they repeat the same patterning. They can't create anything. Only the people of the light can create. I mean, think about photosynthesis that we learn in school. Photosynthesis, the plant has to take the light in. It has to take the light in to grow, right? It's not living in the darkness is not helping it grow. It's the light it takes in that grows. When the sperm hits the egg in the uterus, there's a light that sparks, right? So anyway, so we've got these like Benedictine monks in their black robes because they're in the Saturnalian Brotherhood. They're venerating John the Baptist and John the Evangelist, which who the hell are these guys? Since the name John did not exist back then, that's another question I have that I don't think will be answered for a while. We know the Freemasons also venerate John the Baptist and John the Evangelist. We know the Templars. Yeah, exactly, Misty May. I don't wear sunglasses anymore. I got rid of my sunglasses. And so we have these Templars that also are venerating Saint. Anytime I see Saint John on anything nowadays, I'm skeptical, because first of all, who the hell was John? Because again, that name did not exist back then. So who exactly is John person that they're venerating? Because I don't think it's the same John we're taught about. I just don't. There's something weird about this. So anyway, they were the Order of Saint John. At this time, that's what they were called, the Order of Saint John, right? And so they were they went to Jerusalem to set up this like hostel, this hospital and like boarding house for these pilgrims coming into Jerusalem, where we're gearing up towards the First Crusade. All right. So it was founded by Gerard Sasso, who became a man known as Blessed Gerard. Blessed Gerard. He was born around 1040 and he died on the 3rd of September, 1120. He was from the Almafi, which is going to become important because Almafi is going to become their flag. He was considered a lay brother, which I thought was really weird because I grew up Protestant. And in the Protestant cabal churches, the preachers and priests, or the preachers and reverends, we don't have priests, and ministers can get married. Like, we don't got nuns and people who are celibate. Like, everybody's married, got kids. They're all doing the hokey pokey. It's totally fine. But Gerard, blessed Gerard, was considered a lay brother of the Benedict order, meaning that he dealt with secular issues. So he was like a regular dude that was just kind of aligned with this Benedictine order. And I think that means he probably was boinking women, which I know they all were boinking women, but, you know, he was openly boinking women, which I think the monks probably were very quiet about the women or the men that they were boinking, right?
Yeah, so, it seems like they would have liked them, their own species a lot at those times too.
Now, I thought it was interesting. They made him the head of this order of St. John, which as it was called now, because he was lay. He was considered, so he had dealings with the secular world, right? So he had a cross between the monastic life and the secular political life. Now, this is what, y'all, you want to hear the best gossip ever that I learned from a historian who specializes in the Crusades? Y'all want to know what the historians, the queen gossipers, and the king gossipers, you know what they think about Blessed Gerard at this point? That he was a spy. They believe that he was actually a spy for the Vatican.
Absolutely.
So it took 1,000 years, a little over 1,000 years, but finally we figured it out. He was a damn spy, which makes sense because this Order of St. John that's going to turn into the Knights of Malta created our 3-letter agencies, which are spies, right? So here we go. Blessed Gerard was the Mac Daddy, first ever on paper literal spy that was created by the powers that be, right? And we see from, we talked about, we're going to do the witch war soon with, hopefully soon with our friend Rocker Mike, and they talk a lot about how the church uses, there are a lot of churches that are actually owned by the 3-letter agencies that are used to spy. So this has been going on for a long time. All right, so by this time the Muslims had expelled many of the pilgrims from the Holy Land. All right, so the First Crusade was 1096 to 1099, and it established the Kingdom of Jerusalem. So the bad guys won, sacked Jerusalem, and they left Blessed Gerard. They left Blessed Gerard in charge. He was in charge. And so at this point, they turned the Order of St. John into a military order. I think they've always been military. But anyway, and he became the boss, who became called the Grand Master. I mean, these titles, wow, they create the craziest titles. That's what gives them away half the time. Like, if your job is to be the Grand Master of something, you're probably in a shady secret society, right? So at this, after Gerard, we have a guy named Raymond Dupuy. He was the second Grand Master. And now the Knights were not only in charge of running things, they were also in charge of the healthcare. They became in charge of total healthcare.
St. John's Ambulance. I don't know if you have it there. We have St. John's Ambulance here.
I mean,
wow.
They're the same group. They also adapted the flag for the Order of St. John that's going to turn it. So this is the origin story of the Knights of Malta. So I'm calling it the Order of St. John because that's what it's called right now in our timeline, is the Order of St. John. So they took the Amalfi cross and made it their flag. Now, what's interesting, I think do we have a picture? I know you put one in the thumbnail. I don't know if I sent you a picture of the flag. It's an 8-pointed cross. And think about like, the cross of the Red Cross of a lot of times.
I've got no, I didn't. Actually, let me just see. But hang on, let me see.
The thumbnail for this show. It's an 8-pointed cross, you guys.
Yes, I'm gonna. Let me. I don't have one yet from you, but let me find one quickly. Just give me a moment. I'll find one.
I'm gonna catch up with the comments here. Yeah, boinking. That's my favorite word because we have to be careful about what we say on YouTube sometimes. So it's to boink.
Let me just find. Hang on. Actually, I think where will I find that? Damn it. It's on Canva. Give me a moment. I'll find the Knights of Malta thing now. So you just keep the.
While she's looking for you guys, the flag that they started with Raymond Dupuy, like 1,000 years ago, the flag that he created for the Order of St. John is still the same flag that they use for the Knights of Malta today. And it's an 8-pointed like cross, which if you look at it, you can see all these different institutions like pharmacies, like all sorts of the Red Cross, ambulances that have a very similar emblem on them, which is very, very interesting. I thought it was interesting too, like they were talking about healthcare even back then, that they were all of a sudden in charge of your health. They're in charge of your health. You're not in charge of your health, silly Willy. You're not in charge. You don't have control over that immune system that God gave you. They're going to be in charge of it. They're going to tell you what to do with your immune system that God gave you. They're going to take that autonomy away. All right. As she's looking for that, guys, in 1309, this is another important date, so we're going to skip a couple hundred years forward. The Order of St. John took the island of Rhodes, and at this point, they became the Knights of Rhodes. So this whole idea of a knight, the Knights of Rhodes, the Knights of Malta, remember, they're a military order. Since the Order of St. John was established during the Crusades, they became a military order, a military industrial complex, okay? They decided to move from Jerusalem to Rhodes Island, which is a Greek island, in order to build a naval force. There we go. There's the cross. Doesn't that look like the cross? Doesn't that look like crosses we see on pharmacies and like the Red Cross and ambulances? And isn't that interesting? Super.
And you know what's interesting as well, you know, talking about that health, talking again about our lovely South African gentlemen who are absolutely part of that. They came in here when they were inaugurating Mandela and Co. It was all about health services and getting involved in the communities and giving zappity-doo-dah days, right?
Yes.
And we know what they did with the African people here when it came to AIDS and stuff. I mean, the African people were injected with the AIDS virus coming from the smallpox vaccine. That is common knowledge around here.
I mean, think about Obamacare. That really ripped America and like really started our problems was Obama. I mean, it's crazy. But we're seeing the same playbook. They moved from the Middle East to Rhodes Island, which is an island off of Greece, in order to build a naval force. All right. So this is when we start to see them generating a lot of power. We get maritime law coming into play, which we're all still under. We're all still under the Knights of Rhodes, Malta, the Order of St. John, and their healthcare and their maritime law, which is why we have birth certificates and social security cards, right? So we're seeing this build up. They also, at that point, tricked the Knights Templar. Because the Knights Templar were, I think, removed in the 14th century, which we're at now in the 14th century. So they took all the Knights Templar money and land and made them even more powerful. Now, this is interesting, you guys. They started to make their own money. They started to print their own money, and they made up the rules around their own money. Does that not sound familiar? Did they not?
I'm sure that sounds very much like the Rothschilds' influence there to me.
They printed their own money and they made up the rules around it. Think about our banks today with our interest rates and this and that and credit scores with fake money. It's just glorified paper. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by any valuable. It's freaking a fake paper. It's a glorified paper that they've made the rules up around. Anyway, and they became the most, at this point in the 14th century, the Knights of Rhodes, as they're now called, aka the Order of St. John, are now the most powerful force in the world. But at this point, there's somebody up their tail. A group of people that we, in our history classes, were taught to fear. A group of people that we, in our history classes, were taught that these Vlad Templars, these rulers, were going to go to war against this group because they were gaining momentum. And it's the same group of people that were trying to protect the Gnostics and the Jewish people in the Middle East. And this is the Ottoman Empire.
Muslims.
It's the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottoman Empire still have their eyes set on this group, this Order of St. John. They know these are bad, bad, bad people. And I will say the Cassiopeians have said that to this day, not the fundamentalist Islamic people, not the fundamentalist Muslims, but the mainstream ones they have the closest to the truth. I know that's going to be hard for people to hear because we've been taught to fear them, but we were taught to fear them way back when. So my perspective on the Ottoman Empire is very different now than when I was growing up as a kid. So the Ottoman Empire decided that once and for all, they were going to try to get rid of this dubious order, this Order of St. John, Knights of Malta, or Knights of Rhodes, as they're called now on our timeline. And so they basically attack this island. Okay, and this is in the 16th century now, so the 1500s. The Ottomans target them, and in 1522, the Ottomans took control of Rhodes Island. And you would think, fabulous, finally a group has come in to try to get rid of this nefarious group. But of course, the cabal, the Illuminati, is not going to let an opportunity go to waste. So now we have even more propaganda developing against the Ottoman Empire, propaganda that I think is still existing in our world today against the Ottomans. So on March 23rd of 1530, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, who is Charles V? If you're a history nerd, Charles V was the grandson of Ferdinand and Isabel of Spain. He was also the nephew of Catherine of Aragon, who was the first wife of Henry VIII. This Charles V. All right. He had the awful Habsburg chin. Poor dude. He was so freaking inbred, y'all.
Slurping forehead too.
He looked inbred. Like, fair play to him. At least he had political power, because if he was just a peasant with those looks, he would have never gotten any girls. So bless his heart. Anyway, Charles V, who is the Holy Roman Emperor, who is like the kingest of kings for Western Europe, ordained by the popes, where the Pope is above the king. So he ordains one of the kings to be the Holy Roman Emperor. That's Charles V. He goes, it's okay, Knights of Rhodes. I'm going to gift you 3 islands. I'm going to gift you Tripoli. I'm going to gift you Goza, and I'm going to gift you, drum roll please, Malta. So this is when the Order of St. John, who then becomes the Order of Rhodes,
right,
Order of Malta, because now they have a headquarters that they haven't had to conquer and take over. They've been gifted this order. They haven't really had to pay for it. It's just kind of given to them by the Holy Roman Emperor, the most kingiest of kings of all. It wasn't just like some random king. Like, kings on Europe had to bow down to the Holy Roman Emperor. This is the king that's like right up there with the Pope, the head of the Vatican. And he's giving this order that comes from the Vatican these islands. So I know we're at an hour at this point. We've got.
No, we can carry on a bit more, babe. If there's more,
I've got a ton more to talk about. We've got like pages and pages of notes here. So just tell me when we get to a good stopping point, and we can take it up next week with the rest of it. All right. So by the time that they have Malta, they're armed with power, wealth, and land. They become the heroes of Christendom. So not only is the propaganda that the Ottomans are the bad guys, what's good is bad and what's bad is good, but they are like the Mac Daddy heroes. Like, everyone in Christendom just loves the Knights of Malta. And some of their activities are not so secret now. Like, for example, did you guys know that when they picked a grandmaster, a new grandmaster at this time, they do it the same way that they pick a pope? Like, everyone knows they're waiting for the smoke to come out of the chimney. Same way.
Wow.
So the Knights of Malta were...
I have no idea about that, actually. That's insane.
Yeah.
I have no idea about that, they picked a grandmaster. Yeah, wow.
They do that now because I think they're more low-key underground now. But back then, they were treated just like the popes. So now they created the capital of Malta called Valenta. Now, this is now marked as a World Heritage Site, Valinta. Valinta is very interesting. I actually would like to go see it for myself. They did this fabulous architecture all over Valinta. It's all occult in nature. Everything with this architecture is occult based, okay? Many symbols left by them, especially in the churches. The churches are super symbolic there. Now, get this, you guys. Everyone knew, was no secret, that the Knights of Malta is that part of what their belief was that they overcame death. And that they had the elixir of life. Where have we seen this before?
Yep. Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So and I talked about this because we see this, we talk about inversion, right? We know that death is an illusion in the sense that our soul is what's permanent. Our soul is permanent, not our body.
Lives on.
Death is an illusion, right? What the dark side will do, what Valinta and Malta, Misty May, it's Valinta, V-A-L-L-E-T, Valinta, L-A. So V-A-L-L-E-T-L-A, Valinta, it's the capital of Malta. Now, when you understand the truth of your soul, then you know that death is an illusion, because the body is just what it's like changing clothes, right? You're not attached, like we say in yoga sometimes, that you're practicing for your own death, so that when death comes, you're able to just move on, because you know that this life was just an experience. It wasn't permanent. Your soul is what's permanent. But people who don't have souls or are of the dark side will invert that. They'll promise you things like med beds. Ring a bell? Because they're playing with your ego at this point. They're playing on your fear of physical death. Yes. Where if we understood the truth of our soul, we would not fear physical death. Think about everybody watching right now to look down at what you're wearing. Now, what if I told you you're going to be stuck in that outfit for eternity? Can't change. Well, your soul is aware of that with your body. Your body is a beautiful thing. It's the physical expression of your soul. But your soul is at peace. Your soul knows that the ride will be over one day, and your soul's fine with it. It's your mind. It's your ego that is not okay with that. And so we play in the ego when we start talking about med beds. When we start talking about, now, do I think our lives are cut short here on planet Earth because of the Illuminati? Absolutely. I think we need to be living here longer. Absolutely, I do. But I don't think eternal life has to do with your body, because your body is not your soul. It's just an expression of your soul. It's your soul in motion for now. And the next life, we get a new one.
The vehicles to which you fulfill your purpose in this life.
Exactly. And the next life, we get a whole new one. We get a whole new body, right?
Same soul, different body.
Yeah. We get to play in a new body with new heights and new abilities.
Come in.
So
Lord, my PJs, oh no.
Charmaine, I'm just glad I don't have an underwire bra on right now, because that would
I'm just happy I don't have one on either.
Because that would really, I'm glad I shaved my legs today, because if I got stuck in this body for eternity with unshaved legs, I'd be pissed. So so we see these false promises that with these dark groups that really play with the ego, the false sense of self, and not the soul. Which, if you read this Yoga Sutras, that's really the friction, right? Is that we have an immortal soul and a mortal body, right? And who we think we are is not really. That's what Patanjali is saying. And through spiritual practices, not just yoga, but many spiritual practices, you start to understand you are the watcher. You are the soul experiencing this gift of a body for this moment, and then it will change. And when you know,
and this gift of life, gift of life. For me, this life is so beautiful, because this is where we have the opportunity on third dimension, right? It's where we have the opportunity to have free will and choice. So what are we choosing in this life? And how do we expand our consciousness or our spirit? Because our spirit expands as we grow, or it inverts, if you will. So as we grow in consciousness to love ourselves, to love each other, to love our creator, so we grow. So our aura, if you will, becomes bigger and juicier and yummier. No wonder these guys are so in love with us. They say they hate us, but they can't leave us alone.
They're obsessed with that. I mean, literally, Cabal, if you're watching, it's kind of pathetic. You like stalk us. It's kind of
yeah. You know, stalkers, like,
it's not cute. It's not cute. You're all inbred. You do incest. It's kind of gross. You're kind of, not interested. Thank you very much. I'd rather boink a peasant. Because at least
absolutely.
No, it's and that's the thing too. And Sri Swami Satchitananda in his commentaries on the Yoga Sutras, he talks about this. The more you understand that your place here on this earth isn't permanent, because the body, your soul is permanent, but your body isn't, the more you actually enjoy your life. The more you can find the meaning and the beauty in every day, your life becomes more fulfilled. You love your body, you love the experience.
Yeah, it's precious, and it's even although it's a temporary vehicle, it's the only one you got, and it's the vehicle in which we get to express and expand. So we learn to love it and appreciate it. So many people just call it a meat suit. And people say, well, there's a pill for everything. I'm going, oh my gosh, if you have that consciousness, then small wonder you don't enjoy your physical earthly experience. Right. But, people say my body's a temple. Well, mine's a temple and an amusement park. I have lots of fun in this body.
I said once where someone's like, yeah, my body's a temple. It's one of those old haunted temples that no one visits anymore. It's just like haunted.
Oh, you're haunted with all spiky and
I know. It's like, but that's the thing. Like, the more you understand that you're not permanently here, your soul's just here for the experience, the more you really enjoy being here. The more the good and the bad, the more you really take the nectar of life, the more things come alive to you, because you understand that this is just a moment in your soul's eternal space, and the next experience will be a different one. And so when we see people promising our body eternal life, that's when I go up, red flag. Because they obviously, first of all, they don't understand. If somebody is peddling a med bed to you, they don't understand spirituality, first of all.
No, they don't.
The point of spirituality.
Because everything is internal, not external.
Exactly. And they're playing in their ego, and they're living out their own fear of death. I'm not afraid. I don't want to die now. I want to live to be an old lady. Because I think I can be one of those really cool old ladies that all the kids call a witch. And I can't wait for that.
Same.
Witch, like, I'm really looking. I want town legends about me and my weirdness, right? Like, so I want there to be folklore around my house. Like, I want to live to be that old. But when the day comes that I'm done with this life, I'm totally fine with it. Like, I know that this is, I've spent a lot of time working on my own ego, my own attachments, to know that I'm cool. When it's time to go, I'll leave. It's fine. I'll leave, because I know I'm going. So I know there's no such thing as death anyway. My soul will live on, and so, but I just wanted to point that out, that they talked about this elixir of life. We know that they have their own of life. It's
very interesting, because I'm trying to think about when they talk about the elixir of life. Okay, we know that that's like obviously the cranberry juice, their form of cranberry juice, but there's lots of powerful underground areas, if you want to call it that, there. So I'm wondering where they're getting their elixir from, because we know that their elixir doesn't come from their soul. Their elixir is coming from an external source.
Let me that brings us into something else I want to point out, y'all. You think that Charles V...
Bring it, babe. Bring it.
Y'all, we know now that the cabal does not just do things for shits and giggles. They're not just like, that looks like a cool island. That's mine. No, there's a reason why they pick particular places. And you guys, in 1902, there was a whole underground system that was discovered in Malta. A hypogeum was discovered that was over. The archaeologists think it's probably was built anywhere between 3,000.
When was that built? What year?
They found it in 1902. The archaeologists found it in 1902.
Is that? Wow.
The peasants, us peasants, stumbled upon it in 1902.
peasants.
The peasants. That we found it. We found it in 1902. They knew it was there. I don't have proof that they knew it was there, but we kind of have proof that I'm not stupid. I'm a smart girl. I got common sense. I can connect the dots. They knew it was there. I think that's why Charles V was like, take Malta, because there's a whole underground hypogeum system under the city that was built thousands and thousands of years ago that we get to use.
Pieces of crispy.
There were y'all in 1902, and that's when I sometimes want to be a fly on the wall when the controllers realize that us peasants have found something, because I want to see like that what that meeting's like, oh shit, you guys, the peasants found the hypogeum in Malta. We have to act surprised. Look at that. We didn't know that was there. Good job, archaeologists. Here's a grant from the Smithsonian to keep digging. Like, we gotta act shocked because, they found 7,000 bodies.
Okay, so that's what they were doing. Yeah.
In this hypogeum, they found, and I'm sure there are more. But that's the head count that the peasants found. I'm sure that the controllers sent somebody down at night to scurry and take some more away. So they found 7,000 bodies.
Are they like human bodies, normal bodies, kid bodies, adult bodies, boy bodies, girl bodies?
I'm sure a little of both. It just was bodies. If it was different types of bodies, they probably would have specified. The peasants would have definitely specified, but it was just 7,000 bodies. And it was obvious that ancients had already built temples here, and these were built long before the pyramids were built. So I don't even think we know the half of what was happening in these underground bunkers.
No, not. I mean, this is because this is crazy. This is crazy, actually, when you think about it like that. Because, of course, we know that before the mud floods, there was this entire different world that existed. And obviously, this was part of it. And it's got, obviously, a whole lot of magical elements in that they, of course, like.
Yeah.
So they would have.
I think these temples were used at one point for good. I think they were magical temples used for good. And then that when the mud floods happened, when it got covered, I think that because again, you guys, bless their hearts, they can't create anything. They can only see dirt. So they're
very clever. We know that. I mean, these guys have got IQs in the thousands because they've got no heart center. So all the energy is pushed up into their brains. I've no doubt about that. So they're super clever, and they have got lots and lots of gifts. They know how to, I mean, look at Lucifer. He has plenty of gifts as well, as do all the fallen ones. So they know exactly how to utilize these things. But they only have it from this way, nothing down there. So it's really important that we can recognize that that's also a temporary thing. All of that nonsense is temporary. Wow.
Charmaine, they think humans are expendable because they don't have a soul. So they use us and they feed off of us. It's hard for us, for a healthy-minded person who has a soul. We would never even.
Well, they feed off our soul. They feed off our consciousness. Yeah. That's the thing. Because they can't manifest.
Yes.
They can't manifest. So they use us to manifest their desires. So that's why when we're looking at like The Simpsons and stuff like that, they put out what they want to happen. And they get us to watch it, and suddenly when you're seeing 7 billion people watching Trump become president, and we all go, oh, Trump is president, that's how we create it for them. And that's what we must remember. That's why we've got to get out of this TV nonsense, this sitting on our phones.
They're using our magic. It's our magic that they're using.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, well, I will talk about one more little issue that happened in the 68th Grandmaster was a man named Grandmaster Pinto. And in 1753, he expelled the Jesuits from Malta because the Knights of Malta wanted all the power to themselves. Now, again, the Jesuits and the Knights of Malta are two sides of the same entity. But that's how they fight. They had infighting because they wanted control. Now, a lot of these grandmasters still have descendants that are alive today. So hello to the descendants that are probably watching us right now. If you shadow them, I mean, here's the thing: if you're watching, you grandmasters, listen.
We're probably going to hear all about it after today, Brice.
Like, no, let me just have a heart-to-heart with the grandmasters watching us right now. You guys shadow ban us, and we know we're right.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're kind of fucked. Like, you're kind of fucked.
And you can't knock us out of our ships, our little boats. We are surfing the tsunamis that you give us, and we do it. And as you give us more and more little tsunamis, we become better and better what we do. So we just smart.
I mean, I think I just want these you're kind of fucked, dude. Like, if you don't shadow ban this episode, then people are going to get more information. But if you do shadow ban this episode, that means that we know we're right and our viewers know we're right. So you're fucked. Have a good day.
You're fucked.
Kisses.
Hugs.
Hugs to you. We got your card, buddy. We know. So you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. It really. I mean, listen, you little controllers, members of the controlling elite. You've had your fun, but it must suck to be you right now because you can't.
Yeah, your days are numbered, and they know their days are numbered. They've been pushing it to the hilt, though. They push it to the hilt. Their days are numbered. And, you know, it's like a greedy kid who knows that he has to give up his toys. He's going to want to break all those toys rather than have his little brother get them or someone else get them. So that's what they're doing.
And I can understand why they're afraid of death, because in the next world, the service to self world, like we talked about Genghis Khan, the law of one, so that Genghis Khan is now like a secretary for the
I'm just glad I don't have your karma, buddy. When you munching your kids, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be you.
No wonder you want to stay on this earth in this body, because the next world is not going to be fun for you. You're going to be like a little dweeb to all the other little fourth density service to selfish narcissists. You're going to be like the secretary, like Genghis Khan, who's one of the most brutal people on our planet. He went negative, and he's a freaking secretary. Like...
I love Sling the Traitors, fat controllers.
Yes, like I'm fine. I'm fine with death because I know I'm going to be fine in the next life. Like, that's my karma. So I'm sorry. It's really pathetic to be. I mean, y'all. Anyway. Well, let's talk about, I guess we get, and then next week, I guess we can talk about Paul's involvement, because it's interesting what Paul plays into Russia today. But y'all, so let's talk about the Knights of Malta today. So apparently, now I read through, I have to be careful how I say this because we are on the YouTubes. In 2017, there was a big breach of emails. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So apparently the Knights of Malta were listed in a ton of these emails coming from the DNC, the the Democrats, basically, that were released in 2017. You guys know what we're talking about. Starts with a W, ends with leaks.
Yeah.
So we know that today that only nobles can enter the real order. They have fake Knights of Malta orders everywhere, guys. They have like show knights. It's kind of funny. It's like you can search your town and you might find like a Knights of Malta lodge that's like an LOL. It's like a pretend Knights of Malta. I don't know what's worse. What's worse, joining the real Knights of Malta or being in the fake Knights of Malta? Like the pretend. Like if you're
and thinking you got the real deal going.
What's worse, y'all? Like if your husband wants to join the Knights of Malta in your hometown, maybe encourage him to join like an adult baseball league or something. Like, anyway.
Yeah. So, get a real cap.
Yes. Yes. Now it is confirmed that they created a 3-letter agency. I think I sent you a picture of the guy, Shanti, with the, we can't say the name of it. They do work as spies.
This one or the other one?
Yes,
this one, yeah.
So, who formed the three-letter agency? It was the Catholic Knight of Malta, Wild Bill or William Donovan. He was considered the father of the three-letter agency. He was also the former head of the OSS before he was used to create a three-letter agency. So now many countries have their own three-letter agencies, and if I was a gambling woman, I would bet that they were all started by the Knights of Malta. All right, again, we know that they have a seat at the UN. They work as spies to this day to bring information back to the Vatican. I think I sent you a picture of that one of the heads of the Knights of Malta sending information to the Vatican.
It's Big Daddy.
Yeah, look at that fat controller.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at that. Right. I mean, seriously, these guys with all their money, they should go for liposuction or something, right? Because seriously, I mean, can they at least do something? I mean, they created the plastic surgeons. They should use them. At least give us something attractive to look at.
No wonder they have to pay women to boink them, because they can't get women on their own, can they?
No.
Imagine that hitting on you at a bar. So they are taught. So the real order of the Knights of Malta, as we say a lot, as you talk about a lot, they are taught and trained in the occult from a young age. So from a very young age, they are trained to be Grand Masters of the Knights of Malta. So that's why your husband can't go join in the real Knights of Malta. Now, what I find interesting too is that Malta, eventually, we're going to get to this next week with what happened in Malta and why they had to relocate off of the island of Malta. We'll get to that next week. But when that happened, they had to relocate. Now, we're going to talk about that next week with Russia, because Russia gets involved. But now in 2024, there apparently is a decoy location of the Knights of Malta in Italy. But some rogue petty bitches like ourselves did some digging. I found this on DuckDuckGo. It will not pull up on Google. That they figured out the real headquarters for the Knights of Malta, the real one, is in a bumblefuck small town in Pennsylvania, United States, very close to the major cities on the East Coast.
Wow.
That's all I'll say about that, because I don't want to put anybody in that area into danger, because it is a small town in Pennsylvania. If you search on DuckDuckGo or another search engine, just look around. You might find it for yourself. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to put anybody in danger. I also want to point out that across the countries, if you live in a country where you're close to like a capital, you will find a Knights of Malta embassy. Why? Embassies are for, like, if I'm in South Africa visiting Shanti, let's say, and my passport goes missing, I'm going to go to the United States Embassy for help.
Yeah.
If Shanti's here in America visiting me and something happens, she's going to go to the South African Embassy. They're in all these major cities, right? They're supposed to be like outreach for people abroad, there's multiple purposes. But the Knights of Malta don't actually have their own sovereign land. But they themselves, as I said in the beginning, are a sovereign entity under international law. So they have their own embassies in countries. And I had one historian who does not like the Knights of Malta at all, and I wrote this down. He said, "We have been at war. We, the peasants, have been at war with the Knights of Malta for 1,000 years."
Now you know why. Now we know why. So,
I hate to break it to you, controllers, but I think that we are going to win this war. So anyway, next week, why don't we do part 2? Because this now opens up to a whole.
Yeah, I think part two, and it's so funny. You've got 111 watches and 11 likes. So how interesting is that? There's 5 ones. Yeah,
that's a bad week. So exactly. You guys, I totally encourage you all to research this stuff for yourself. Silver Lining said they're going to be somebody's little bitch when they go for it. When they die, they go forth density negative. Yeah, that's why they don't want to die, because they're going to be somebody's little bitch. Yeah, the King of Spain is part of it. A lot of our leaders across the world are a part of the Knights of Malta. Absolutely. So
definitely, they're powerful, and they come in all sorts of different disguises. So, but we shall do part 2 next week on Monday, and then we will have our conclusion drawn. That sounds delightful.
Because this is fascinating, you guys, and the gig is up to the Knights of Malta. Your days are a number. Your gig is up. We're on to you. So
indeed. Well, I am very grateful that we were talking about this today. Fantastic episode. Thank you, Professor Brice. We muchly appreciate you here on Aquarius Rising Africa. We muchly appreciate you. And we look forward to having you all back. In fact, Wednesday we're actually doing on solutions with Shanti. We are doing part 3 of Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Frankie. For those of you who don't know as well, that's that horrible, I think everyone should know by now, though, that horrible child abuse case by those 2 women and who are now pretty much in jail. But we're going to be looking at her style of therapy, and that was obviously, and since she was endorsed by the Mormon Church, basically, I mean, the church is always involved with everything, so it would not surprise me that she was programmed by the church to do exactly what she did, and whatever it was when she was a kiddie winkle and stuff like that as well. So we're going to be looking into her style of therapy called the Connection Classroom, and what that all meant and how she actually went about doing that. Very deceptive. Wow. Very, very. I mean, we got to be so careful, guys, who we allow into our personal space. Honestly, I can't say that enough times to people. Anyway, we shall look into that more on Wednesday. Have a beautiful, 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 beautiful rest of your Monday. Enjoy your week. I'm speaking to Kathy O'Brien tomorrow night. So
awesome. I've done a show. She's amazing.
Yeah. So chatting with her at 6 p.m. my time tomorrow night, which is like 20 minutes from now, wherever in the world you are. So you can just do. For those of you, I know when it comes to comparing with time zones, South Africa, we're all on the same time zone. Joburg, Cape Town, Harare time. Just compare your time to Johannesburg time or Cape Town time, and then it's all. So it's very uncomplicated.
For East Coasters, she'll be speaking with Kathy tomorrow at noon East Coast time, because it's 11:40 a.m. right now. So it'll be noon. Yeah. So
it's 12 o'clock on East Coast time.
Yeah, lunchtime.
Yeah, so grab your lunch, grab your chai, your wine, whatever it is you do at lunchtime, and tune in. I'll be having, and I'm looking forward to chatting with Kathy O'Brien. She's fabulous.
Madeline just made a really funny comment. They will end up being yacht girls.
Exactly.
They go to see the yacht girls about.
Never did that fatty, that one. I'm just glad I'm not going to be having that yacht girl. That fatty with a red blazer.
Oh, I mean, listen, dude, a little Jenny Craig wouldn't hurt you, little Weight Watchers, and maybe you wouldn't have to pay for women, and you could actually get one on your own.
Exactly. Ooh. Yeah, indeed. Anyway. Okay, guys, love you madly. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always have lots and lots of fun with you. God bless you all. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.